racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Car and motorcycle racing and a passion for all kinds of vehicles was life for Steve McQueen. He was a full-throttle enthusiast of driving and riding a lengthy list of some of the coolest vehicles around. Known as the King of Cool, McQueen's immense star power in the 1960s and early 1970s allowed him to indulge in his four-wheeled and two-wheeled desires both on-screen and off-screen. As a consummate car guy in a position to influence the content of some of his films, he found many opportunities to show off a variety of sublime vehicles and his brilliant driving skills whenever possible. This video is part one of a two-part series and takes a peek at some of the more significant cars that Steve McQueen drove or owned, both on-screen and off-screen. In the late 1950s, Steve was becoming established as a Hollywood actor and transitioned from TV shows to movie acting gigs. As his star rose, so did his paydays, which allowed him to begin to acquire some sports cars that he could drive on the street and then take to the track to build up his racing skills. In 1958, Steve added a brand new black-on-black 1958 Porsche 356A Speedster 1600 Super to his garage. It was the perfect Southern California sports car from the 1950s, as it was developed from the 356 Coupe to appeal to those who wanted a lower-priced version of the coupe that was devoid of frills. The Super version of the Speedster stepped up the horsepower from 65 to 75 over that of the standard 1600cc engine. McQueen customized his by removing the stock bumpers, cutting down the windscreen, and installing a roll bar. After winning some SCCA races, he decided to sell the Porsche for something a little more powerful. That was a decision he regretted, and embarked on a search for about a decade to locate the car and purchase it from its new owner. The car stayed with him for the rest of his life after that, and still resides in the possession of his immediate family. In 1958, Steve bought a slightly used right-hand drive 1957 Jaguar XK-SS from TV game show host Bill Lydon. The XK-SS was really Jaguar's D-type race car that had been built specially for competition and was not originally intended as a road car. When Jaguar couldn't find buyers for the D-type, as it was considered uncompetitive in the later 1950s, they set about converting them to road cars to sell to the public. After acquiring his, McQueen painted the car British racing green and reupholstered the interior in black leather. And how cool it was with its double overhead cam inline 6-cylinder XK engine exhausting through side pipes and good for around 275 horsepower. The car was loud and not exactly stealthy during some early morning blasts on Mulholland Drive. This was another car that Steve sold off in the 1960s, only to be repurchased by the actor in the 1970s. In the early 1960s, Steve appeared in a bunch of movies including The Great Escape, a World War II movie about an escape from a German POW camp. The movie is noteworthy for its great cinematography, as well as a motorcycle chase and jump scene near the end, with a lot of the riding performed by McQueen himself, except for the jump, which was performed by his pal, stuntman Bud Eskins. In the first half of the 1960s, Steve continued to indulge his car appetite and snagged some pretty sweet rides during this time period. In 1964, a 1963 V12 Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta Lusso was obtained by his then-wife Nile as a birthday present for Steve. The V12 in the Lusso was a detuned version of those of the 275 GT SWB and GTO models of the day, of which the Lusso shared a chassis and similar design language. McQueen's car was ordered in a medium brown metallic exterior color called maroon, along with a beige interior. It was a stunningly sexy Grand Tourer whose bodywork consisted of both steel and aluminum panels, and quickly became Steve's favorite for high-speed road trips. He sold the car around 1967, where it changed hands a couple of more times over the years since, and was restored along the way. In 2007, it surfaced at a Christie's auction in Monterey, where it sold for $2.3 million, well north of its value at the time due to the McQueen ownership provenance. In 1966, Steve and Sports Illustrated magazine collaborated on an article where Steve test drove and evaluated a group of sports cars at Riverside Raceway in Southern California. One of the cars that was evaluated for the article was the 1966 Corvette Stingray, outfitted with the newly introduced 427 big block engine. His impression of the car at Riverside was that it was the second best of the 8 cars he drove during the sessions, with the Ferarri being the best of the bunch. It also ended up in his driveway for a period of time in the 1960s. It was rumored that, unbeknownst to Steve, the car was specially prepared by Chevrolet for media testing and included a yet unreleased L88 prototype engine that gave it some extra giddy-up. As with the Ferarri, there are scarce photos of McQueen with the car, and no documentation of what became of the Skunkworks Stingray. We've covered the era in Steve's life from the 1950s and partway through the 1960s, and saw some interesting and excellent selections for the personal vehicles that he chose to drive, and those that appeared on screen during this period of his blossoming movie career. We get a sense of the type of vehicles that were visceral to him and defined who he was as a car guy, racer, and motorsports enthusiast. This video was part 1 of a 2-part series. In the upcoming part 2, we'll take a look at the next phase of his career and the vehicles that played iconic and pivotal roles both on-screen and off-screen. We hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe to this channel so that you'll get notification of when part 2 drops and when all new videos are released. As always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like, share, and comment on this video.